You're treating the symptoms, not the cause. The words fell from Maya Williams' lips with quiet urgency, just loud enough to pierce the sterile silence of the suite, just dangerous enough to make the air freeze. It wasn't the first time she'd thought it, but it was the first time she'd dared to say it out loud. Dr. Walden stopped flipping through Alan Ridge's chart. Slowly, every doctor and nurse in the room turned to face her. For a long moment, no one spoke. The cardiac monitor kept beeping. The oxygen hissed. Somewhere outside the door, a gurney rolled past on squeaky wheels. But inside that room, time stalled. "What did you say?" Walden asked. His voice clipped, with the tone of a man used to being obeyed, not questioned, especially not by a janitor. Maya's hands tightened around the mop handle. Her cleaning gloves, already damp from hours of work, squeaked softly against the plastic, but her voice was steady now. "I said, you're treating the symptoms, not the cause." A snort broke the tension. Dr. Madsen leaned back against the counter, arms crossed. "Well, that's a bold statement from someone holding a mop." Laughter rippled through the group. A young resident exchanged a grin with another. "What's next? Maybe she can weigh in on our biopsy reports?" Dr. Halford chuckled. "Careful, gentlemen. She might publish her findings in Janitorial Medical Monthly." Maya's jaw clenched, but she didn't back down. She had watched these men and women for days, 14 to be exact. 14 nights of mopping floors, changing trash liners, and wiping down surfaces, all while observing the finest medical minds in the country wrestle with a mystery they couldn't solve. And she had seen it. The nervous glances between specialists when Alan's vitals dipped again, the whispered arguments in the hallways, the way they leaned heavier on palliative care language with each passing day, managing comfort, reducing distress, dignified decline. They didn't have answers. Maya had watched as they circled the problem like dogs around a trap. Each new theory dismissed the last. Autoimmune collapse, rare metabolic disorder, even psychological suppression. Nothing stuck. The billionaire's body kept unraveling, and the confidence of his elite care team unraveled with it. Except they'd never admit it. Not out loud, not in front of each other, and certainly not in front of a housekeeper. Dr. Walden stepped forward now, every inch the head physician. "Miss Williams," he said evenly, "this is not your concern. Please return to your duties." A younger doctor muttered, "She's overstepping. She should be removed." Before we continue, if you find this story interesting, make sure to subscribe. It really encourages us to keep bringing you more. "I agree," another said. "This is a confidential medical consultation. She has no clearance to be here right now." Maya's gaze swept the room one last time. She lingered on Alan Ridge, unmoving beneath his oxygen mask. His once imposing figure now looked small, sunken, helpless. She bit down the frustration and turned to leave. But before she did, she said quietly, "I've seen you all guessing. Every night. You don't know what's wrong with him. But someone needs to." She walked out without waiting for their reply. Out in the hallway, her steps slowed. Her heart thundered in her chest, but her mind was already racing ahead. She moved her cart to a quiet corner and pulled out the clipboard she wasn't supposed to have, the one where she'd been recording Alan Ridge's symptoms in secret. She flipped to the latest page. Fingernail lines deepening, hair thinning more on left side, confusion episodes increasing, new hand cream used before each decline. She underlined the last one twice. Maya had been watching closely, and she'd been remembering. Before life rerouted her into this job, before the accident that took her parents and left her raising two younger siblings, she had been a chemistry major on full scholarship. Honors student, lab assistant, 2 semesters from graduation. That part of her life had been buried under years of bills and night shifts, but it hadn't died. And now, it was screaming from the back of her mind. Thallium. She remembered the properties, the case studies, the symptoms that were so easy to miss. Neuropathy, confusion, hair loss, digestive breakdown, all of it matched. And thallium could be absorbed slowly, especially if administered through the skin. A hand cream, perhaps. Her eyes drifted back to the suite door. That black jar on the nightstand, Chamberlain Black, imported, expensive, was always brought in by Jefferson Burke, always opened fresh, always followed by Alan's condition worsening within 48 hours. They hadn't seen it, but Maya had. She returned to the break room, though she didn't sit. Instead, She opened the janitor closet next to it and reached behind the cleaning supplies for a small plastic vial she'd saved weeks ago from a disinfectant shipment. She didn't have access to a lab. She didn't have letters after her name, but she had eyes, memory, and the quiet, dangerous certainty of someone who had watched the best struggle and come up empty. Tomorrow night, she'd take a sample, quietly, cautiously. They could laugh at her all they wanted, but Alan Ridge was dying, and Maya Williams might be the only person in this building who was finally ready to ask the right question. Maya waited until the hallway lights dimmed to their overnight setting, casting a soft amber glow along the polished floors. It was just after 2:30 a.m., the time when even the most high-strung doctors began to yawn behind clipboards, when nurses rotated between whispering at the nurses' station and monitoring machines. The world got quieter then. And in that quiet, Maya moved. She approached Alan Ridge's suite slowly, pushing her cleaning cart with the same unhurried rhythm she'd used for years. Familiarity was her armor now. No one paid attention to a custodian wiping down counters at 2 in the morning. Inside the suite, Alan lay as he had all night, pale, unmoving, tethered to machines. His face was sunken deeper into the pillow now. The man once known for his explosive energy and visionary speeches looked like he'd been hollowed out by ghosts. But Maya wasn't looking at him tonight. Not directly. Her eyes went to the black jar on the nightstand, Chamberlain black. Same place, same angle. Burke had been there again this afternoon, while Maya had been on her lunch break. The nurse on duty had told her, offhandedly, "Mr. Burke came by. Left some things." Maya had known what that meant. She wiped the monitor screen first, then the base of the IV stand, all while glancing at the corner of the nightstand. She timed her movements, matched her breath with the quiet beeping of the cardiac monitor, and finally, when no one was looking, she opened the bottom compartment of her cleaning cart. Out came the vial, clear plastic, just an inch tall, with a tightly sealed cap. She moved with calm precision, just as she'd practiced in her head a dozen times. Glancing one last time toward the hallway, she reached out, dipped a cotton swab into the jar's cream, and transferred a small smear into the vial. She sealed it immediately and slipped it into her apron pocket. No alarms went off, no voices rose. The monitors kept beeping, and outside, the world kept spinning. Maya turned and resumed wiping down surfaces, but her mind was burning. Tomorrow, she'd take the sample to the only person she trusted, Walter Haynes, a retired toxicologist who now worked part-time at a local water treatment lab. Walter had been a friend of her father's, a quiet man who believed in science and second chances. He wouldn't ask questions. He would just run the test. She left the suite quietly and made her way down the corridor. Her footsteps echoed, but no one stopped her. She was invisible again, just as she needed to be. Back in the break room, she sat in the farthest chair from the door and stared at the vial. The cream shimmered faintly under the fluorescent lights. She thought about Burke, his calculated smile, his impeccable suits, the way he always lingered just long enough to seem caring, but never long enough to draw real attention. He wasn't listed as family. It had no legal authority. But everyone deferred to him anyway because he knew Alan, because he was important. But Maya had seen it. The timing, the pattern. Every time Burke visited, Alan's decline accelerated. It wasn't a hunch anymore. It was math. It was logic. It was murder, slow, elegant, and hidden in plain sight. She leaned back and closed her eyes. Just for a moment. Her daughter's face came to her, Leah, age 10, sleeping with her arm wrapped around a book, always asking questions Maya couldn't always afford to answer. She thought of her parents too, of her father's deep, scratchy voice. Truth doesn't need a title to be right. The next morning, before her shift ended, Maya made the detour. She drove her rusted-out Honda Civic to the back entrance of the water treatment facility, where Walter sometimes ran private tests for old colleagues. She waited in the parking lot, tapping the steering wheel until she saw his familiar limp cross the asphalt. Walter looked at the vial, his eyebrows lifting slightly. "What is this?" "Skin cream," she said. "Can you check for thallium?" He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll run it today. No promises." "Just the truth," Maya said. He gave a tired smile. "Still your father's daughter, I see." No. By the time Maya returned home that morning, she felt like her body had run a marathon. She climbed into bed with her clothes still on, pulling the blanket over her face to block the morning Sunday, But she couldn't sleep. All she could think about was the way the doctors had dismissed her, the way they always did. She'd worked there for 7 years. She'd cleaned their offices, their lounges, their messes, and they had never once asked for her name. But if she was right, if she had caught what they missed, then she was about to force them to remember it. Her phone buzzed at 10:17 a.m. She jolted upright. Walter Haynes, call me, urgent. Her heart pounded as she fumbled to hit call. Walter, she said, what did you find? A pause. Then his voice, low and serious. You weren't wrong, he said. It's there. Trace amounts of thallium. Enough to build up in soft tissue over time. If he's been exposed consistently, he has, Maya said. Walter sighed. Then he's in critical danger. And someone is trying to kill him. If you support Maya and want the truth to come out, hit like. And don't forget to comment your location, because maybe someone near you is watching this story too. The words hit harder than she expected, even though she'd known them all along. What do I do? She asked. You need to report this, officially, if he's still being exposed. I can't, she cut in. They won't listen to me. They barely let me stay in the room. Walter hesitated. If you're still here and enjoying the story, we'd love your support. Take a second to hit subscribe. It really means a lot. Then you need someone who will listen. And you need to be careful, Maya. If you're right, whoever is doing this, they won't want you talking. She ended the call and sat in silence, phone still pressed to her ear. Careful? Careful? She had already crossed the line just by speaking up. But now, she wasn't just cleaning up after secrets, she was holding one in her hand. She glanced at the photo of Leah on her nightstand. Someone was poisoning Alan Ridge. And the people in charge were too arrogant or too complicit to see it. Maya Williams didn't know what would come next, but she knew one thing. She wasn't backing down. Not now. Not when the truth was finally waking up. By the time Maya arrived at the hospital that evening, a storm was building in the sky. Heavy gray clouds pressed low over the city, and lightning danced on the far horizon like a warning. She parked farther from the staff lot than usual. Her hands gripped the steering wheel even after she turned off the ignition. Walter's words echoed in her ears. Someone is trying to kill him. Inside her coat pocket, her phone buzzed. A text from Walter. Walter Haynes. Sample confirmed again. No doubt. It's thallium. Stay alert. Maya locked her phone and exhaled. The test was now confirmed twice. If Alan Ridge didn't receive chelation therapy and fast, he wouldn't survive the week. But how did she, a housekeeper, force a hospital full of egos and credentials to listen? As she entered through the rear service door, she tugged her badge a little tighter around her neck and pushed her cart to the elevator. Floor 8, the private suite level. She'd walked this hallway 1,000 times. It should have felt routine. Tonight it felt like walking a wire. When she reached Alan Ridge's room, she paused. There was a man standing outside, Jefferson Burke. He was leaning against the wall in his designer blazer, tapping at his phone, his expression unreadable. His presence was too casual for someone who'd once co-founded one of the most powerful tech empires in America. He looked up as Maya approached. For a moment, they stared at each other. He smiled, slow and polite. Too polite. You must be Maya, he said, stepping aside with a practiced gesture. Alan's mentioned you, said you keep the place spotless. Maya forced a neutral smile. Just doing my job. Burke studied her for a second longer than necessary. His eyes weren't cruel, but there was calculation behind them like a chess player scanning the board. He had a rough morning, Burke said. Vitals dipped again. Doctors say they're trying a new approach. Maya kept her gaze steady. Is that so? Burke tucked his phone away. Shame, isn't it? All that brilliance. And now he can't even say his own name. She said nothing. Instead, she nodded politely and entered the room. Alan Ridge lay still, his color worse than the night before. The nurses had dimmed the lights and placed cooling packs around his body. He looked like he was being prepped for something permanent. She looked to the nightstand. A new jar. It was unopened this time, but the brand was the same, Chamberlain Black. Maya's stomach twisted. Jefferson Burke had been here before visiting hours ended, and he had brought another jar. She made a choice in that moment. She took a pair of gloves from her cart, pulled them on, and opened the nightstand drawer. She pulled out the previous jar, the one she had already sampled, and slipped it into her cart's hidden compartment. It could serve as secondary proof, a backup if the first sample mysteriously disappeared. Outside the suite, Burke was gone, but when she returned to the break room half an hour later, something felt off. A nurse she didn't recognize was sitting in her usual chair. Two residents hushed their conversation the moment she entered. One of them gave her a look, not quite hostile, but guarded. Like someone had told them something. She returned to her cart and noticed a folded sheet of paper tucked beneath the cleaning checklist. It was unsigned. "Stop asking questions. Stay in your lane." Maya's heart slammed against her rib cage. They knew. Not everyone, maybe, but someone. Someone had noticed she was watching, connecting the dots, and they wanted her afraid. She folded the note slowly and tucked it into her pocket. Her first instinct was to report it. But to who? Hospital security wouldn't help. HR? They'd write her up for making accusations without evidence. Walter's warning returned with full weight. "They won't want you talking." She finished her shift in silence, eyes and ears sharp. She avoided eye contact with the residents, ignored the way two nurses glanced at her when they thought she wasn't looking. When her shift finally ended at 5 a.m., she didn't drive home. Instead, she made her way to the basement archives, where old records were kept: maintenance logs, supply invoices, patient services reports. She pulled out the file marked Ridge, Allen, and scanned it quickly. Burke was listed as an emergency contact. That wasn't surprising. What was surprising was how frequently Burke's name appeared in the non-medical logs. Deliveries signed by Burke. Supplies requested on Ridge's behalf. Product substitutions authorized, including skin creams. Maya took photos of everything with her phone. She had pieces of the puzzle. But to put it all together, she needed help. Not just Walter. She needed someone inside the hospital. Someone with access. Her mind flashed to Aaron, one of the charge nurses on floor 6, who had once confided in Maya about a misdiagnosed patient and the fear of retaliation if she spoke up. Maya decided to reach out. Later that day, she sat across from Aaron in a quiet corner of a diner near the hospital. The waitress poured them both coffee, and Aaron leaned in. "What's this about, Maya?" Maya pulled out her phone and slid it across the table. "I need you to see this." Aaron scrolled through the photos. Her brow furrowed deeper with each image. "Maya, this is serious." "I know. You're saying he's being poisoned? Here? While under our care?" "Yes," Maya whispered, "and I think Burke's behind it." Aaron's hands trembled slightly as she set the phone down. "This goes way beyond me. But I know someone in the toxicology department. If we can get blood and skin tests ordered quietly, we might be able to confirm it, without tipping anyone off." Maya's eyes locked with hers. "Can you trust them?" Aaron nodded slowly. "If it's about saving a man's life? Yeah, I can." They sat in silence for a moment as the coffee cooled between them. Then Aaron whispered, "They're going to come after you if you push this." Maya smiled grimly. They already started. Outside, the rain finally began to fall. Heavy, relentless. But inside that little booth, the quiet strength between two women both overlooked, both underestimated, was gathering like a storm of its own. Maya had seen too much to stop now. Aaron kept her promise. The next night, Maya arrived to find a sticky note tucked inside the clean linen cabinet on the east wing where Aaron had said she'd leave her messages. It read simply, "Test ordered. Those AM, vitals draw. Keep quiet." Maya folded the note into the palm of her glove and tucked it into her waistband. At 1:45 a.m., she rolled her cart past Alan Ridge's suite, heart racing. Through the window, she saw Aaron already inside, standing beside the bed, pretending to check the IV line. One of the senior nurses, Angela, was scheduled for the shift, but Aaron had managed to swap with her, citing a family emergency just long enough to get 30 minutes alone. Maya gave a slight nod. Aaron didn't acknowledge her directly, but Maya caught the subtle movement of her shoulder, the calm precision with which she placed a capped vial into a discreet pouch on her utility belt. She was good, controlled. She didn't even glance at the security camera in the hallway. At exactly 2:08 a.m., Aaron walked out of the room, gave Maya a quick once-over as if checking for spilled solution, and whispered under her breath as she passed, Meet me in the staff stairwell, 10 minutes. 10 minutes later, Maya was standing in the narrow, echoing stairwell between floors 7 and 8. Aaron arrived holding a paper coffee cup, but inside was a small, insulated case. She opened it just enough for Maya to glimpse 2 labeled vials, one blood, one skin, both taken under pretense of checking liver panels and dehydration rash. No one asked questions, Maya murmured. I followed protocol exactly, Aaron replied. Filed the requisition under Dr. Halford's name. He has so many test requests pending. No one will notice an extra 2. At least not right away. Maya exhaled. And the lab? My friend Marcus. He's quiet, sharp, and his older brother just died of medical negligence. I told him enough to get his attention, but not enough to make him a target. Smart, Maya said. Aaron handed over the case. I'd suggest you not hang on to these long. Whoever's behind this, if they realize what we're doing, they'll shut it down. Maya nodded. I'll take them to Walter. He'll know what to do. They parted ways without another word, but something passed between them, something silent and powerful. Aaron wasn't just helping out of kindness. She was tired of being a cog in a system that buried its mistakes. By the time Maya reached Walter's lab just after dawn, the city was waking up. Sirens howled in the distance. The sun pushed weakly through the clouds, and she felt the weight of the case pressing into her ribs like a secret too big to carry alone. Walter didn't waste time. He ushered her into the back of the lab, locked the door, and pulled the vials into his workstation with the care of someone handling live explosives. Same symptoms? He asked. Worse, Maya said. He's barely responsive. They're saying it's neurological collapse. Walter grunted. If it's thallium, then yes, final stage. He went to work without further discussion. Maya watched him prep the tools, label samples, and run the extraction. It was strange, watching science stripped of ego, no white coats, no laughter, no arrogance, just method, attention, and the pursuit of truth. An hour later, Walter turned to her. I have the results. Maya sat up straighter. There are elevated thallium levels in both the blood and skin, he said, far beyond environmental exposure. This is chronic poisoning administered in small, consistent doses. Maya let the breath leave her lungs slowly. She had been right. All this time. Her notes, her patterns, her instincts. This proves it? She asked. It's irrefutable, and now it's on record. Walter placed the printout into a folder, sealed it, and handed it to her. You need to be careful now, he warned. This isn't a theory anymore. You're a witness, a whistleblower. Maya nodded, her throat tight. I'm not just that, she said quietly. I'm the only one trying to save him. She left the lab and drove home with the folder in the glove compartment, and her hands sweating on the steering wheel. The world outside looked the same. Same traffic lights. Same billboards. Same chaos. But something fundamental had shifted. She was no longer powerless. She had proof. But power, she knew, had its own cost. When she arrived at her apartment, she found her front door ajar. Her heart jumped. She stepped inside slowly, her keys clutched like a weapon. Nothing was broken, nothing stolen, but she knew instantly someone had been inside. The drawers in her kitchen were half open, her file cabinet slightly shifted, and on the counter, where she always left her badge before bed, was a sticky note she had never written. You're not a doctor. Stop pretending. No name, no signature. Maya stared at the note for a long time. Then, slowly, she pulled it off the counter and fed it into the garbage disposal. The machine growled as it chewed it to pulp. She sat on her couch and held the sealed folder in her lap. She was alone. No legal protection. No real allies except for Walter and Aaron. And even they were vulnerable now. But Maya Williams had been underestimated before. She wouldn't be again. That night, she returned to the hospital like any other night, wore her gloves, pushed her cart, smiled politely. But she also carried a copy of the toxicology report tucked inside a water bottle false bottom container. Another copy was already in Walter's safe. She had survived too much to play by their rules now. Someone was poisoning Alan Ridge. Maya had proof. And one way or another, someone was going to answer for it. The following evening, Maya returned to the hospital with a new layer of steel beneath her skin. She wore her uniform like armor, Her badge clipped a little higher, her shoulders squared. No one could see the file she carried, not tucked in a false bottom container, not wrapped in fear, but it was there, and it pulsed with the truth. She walked through the lobby with her usual pace, nodding to the security guard who never remembered her name, past the vending machines, past the artificial plants, up the elevator to floor 8. Alan Ridge's suite stood at the end of the corridor like a sealed vault, quiet, guarded, isolated. Tonight, Jefferson Burke wasn't outside, but the jar was still inside. Maya entered with measured steps. The night nurse on duty, a wiry man in his early 30s named Kevin, barely looked up as she pushed her card in. "Don't touch the patient's side," he muttered. "Just clean the shelves and go." She gave a quiet nod. Kevin returned to his tablet. Maya moved through the room, wiping counters, checking supply drawers, adjusting the monitor wires. Every move was purposeful, casual, practiced, but her eyes never left that black jar. As she passed by the nightstand, she saw it had been opened again. A faint residue glistened on the lid. Alan lay motionless, his breathing shallow. His skin had grown paler overnight, with a yellowish tint under his eyes. The scent of antiseptic barely masked the deeper scent of something decaying. She took a deep breath and leaned close enough to whisper, "Hold on. Just a little longer." But that night, during her break, Maya made her way to the west stairwell, the one used by staff who needed to cry, argue, or breathe. Erin was already waiting, sipping from a paper cup, her eyes ringed with exhaustion. "You have it?" Erin asked softly. Maya nodded and handed her a copy of the toxicology report, sealed inside a manila envelope. Erin opened it carefully, her eyes scanning each line. When she looked up, her face had gone pale. "This will bury them," she said, "if we get it into the right hands." "That's the problem," Maya said. "There are too many wrong ones in the way." They sat in silence. Just above them, life and death decisions were being made, some honest, some careless, and some, now, criminal. "I've been asking around," Erin said, quietly. "There are whispers about Burke connections, favors. Some nurses think he has leverage over Dr. Halford. Blackmail? Maybe. Or worse. Have you heard anything about security?" Maya asked. Erin hesitated. "Just that cameras on floor 8 don't always record at night. Especially not when Burke visits." Maya's pulse quickened. "So someone's helping him, or being paid to look away." Maya clenched her jaw. "We need someone outside the hospital. Media. Maybe." Erin shook her head. "Too early. If this gets out before we secure Alan's treatment, they'll spin it as a hoax, or a vendetta. They'll say we tampered with the samples." Maya nodded slowly. "Then we need one more thing." What?" Caught in the act, Erin stiffened. "You mean?" "Set a trap?" "Eep. Number, watch, and record. I can install a camera hidden. I'll clean his room like usual, but I'll leave something behind." "That's dangerous," Erin whispered. "If Burke catches you, I'm already on his list," Maya said. "They broke into my apartment. Left a note." Erin blinked. "Maya, I'm not stopping." Erin reached out and squeezed Maya's hand. It was the first time anyone had touched her in weeks. Warm, grounding, human. They sat there for a long moment. Not as a nurse and a janitor, but as two women trying to stop something monstrous with nothing but courage and makeshift plans. The next night, Maya came prepared. Inside her mop bucket was a fake disinfectant container, rigged with a small pinhole lens connected to a transmitter. Walter had helped her modify it in his garage, laughing dryly as he soldered the parts. "Never thought I'd be building spy gear with a housekeeper," he'd said. "But I've seen worse in this country." Maya had smiled. "This country is worse when no one's watching." Now, under the harsh fluorescent lights of Ridge's suite, Maya placed the disguised container on the far shelf near the nightstand, angled just enough to catch the side table, the patient's hand, and anyone who approached. She cleaned as usual. Wiped the monitor, checked the vent cover, replaced the tissue box. She was methodical, invisible. She left the room without drawing attention. Hours passed. Around 3:12 a.m., Maya slipped into a janitor's closet down the hall and pulled up the feed on a borrowed tablet. The screen flickered, then settled into a soft black and white image. Alan Ridge's suite. Still, then movement. The door opened slowly. Jefferson Burke entered, his silhouette instantly recognizable even in grainy night vision. He wore gloves, a tight, calculated expression on his face. Maya watched as he approached the nightstand. If you want to hear the full story, just comment Black Housekeeper and subscribe to the channel. I promise the ending will touch your heart in a way you won't forget.